Your boy making cold cuts, and I ain't talking about the sandwiches.
Conversations just got deeper, 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 more real. And that type of vulnerability, we can talk about vulnerability.
Thinking you're vulnerable because you're connecting with people. And vulnerability is so much more than connecting with people and like talking about things. It's really it's a choice.
And you feel like, wow, I gotta give up everything. Like I gotta become this different kind of person. And I gotta and that it was a big fear of mine. I was like, no, I wanna go out and live my life. Like I wanna have fun, I wanna be free.
It's just I'm like it required vulnerability that I think neither one of us really understood we were not accessing.
These falsehoods that have been forced upon people that I think kind of trips people up and prevents them from really kind of taking this journey altogether. You're actually greater than you think you are, but people seldom explore that space, and it's dirty work. I mean, it's not easy work to do that. You're like, wait, I don't want to go out to a club and drink every night. Wait, I don't want to do all of this. Like there's so many things that you just start they naturally start falling off and you don't miss them. You're actually, instead of missing them, you're actually grateful that you're no longer doing it.
When we have strong community, a lot of these questions just get answered.
Because if you
And
don't,
that's
you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But if you know, you know.
and if you know, you can't forget. You can't pretend
Yeah.
like you don't. It's vulnerability.
Yay, we're here.
We made it.
This is a long time coming because, I got a bone to pick with you. You've been doing all these podcasts, and I'm like, when
You know
is
what they say, man? You got to say the best for last. I
when
can
you feel like
wholeheartedly
now?
tell you, as somebody who's constantly getting deep, I think, eh, without question, the last, what, 7, 8 years, there's nobody else I consistently and as frequently get as deep than you. And so,
Likewise, I think I've said this to you. My lifetime, I mean, you know me, you and I, we've come a long way. And frankly, how God brought us together, it was just sheer, like, it's blown your mind, it's blown my mind. I don't think either of us saw this friendship coming. I don't think, and it's weird. I remember you, and I'm just going to rehash for, whoever's watching this, because you and I know the story.
I,
But I remember we were both working at an ad agency in LA, 72 and Sunny. And I remember seeing this handsome young black man sitting by himself. You looked like you were working on something, but I was like, who is this guy? And then I saw you a couple of times. I'm like, wait, why is he? And I talked to somebody in HR and I was like, who is that? And why is he sitting by himself? Every time I see him, he's not with a team. Like, what's going on? And so I think it was Simone. She said, "Oh yeah, that's Isaac. He's an intern and he's great." And she said, we had a problem placing him, but now we're kind of figuring out. I think you were working in Etcho or something briefly. Anyway, they set it up so that I would talk to you and interview you or talk or something, and you and I had a conversation. And then from that point forth, I think we both just knew it was just like this guy is the real deal. And I felt your energy. I think you felt my energy. And we just very naturally remained friends after that. And I'm talking about like real friends. Like you were coming to my house, I was coming to your house. Like you didn't live that far from me. We were both in LA, like right down the block from each other at the time. And it's just we've literally been friends ever since. And that friendship has deepened in a way that I don't think either of us really expected because I'm older than you, and not that that matters because I'm also sexy still at my age, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. But I'm giving auntie vibes. And so I was just like, this guy's kind of becoming my best friend. Like, how is that happening, God? And it was all just like real conversations. The flow is just so real and easy. I've never felt that way. And I know a lot of people, you know that. We both do. So I know a lot of people. I've been friends with a lot of people, but no one ever made me feel that seen or connected. It's really weird to say that. And I feel like with you over the years, we just started conversations just got deeper, 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 more real. And that type of vulnerability, we can talk about vulnerability. That type of vulnerability for me, it didn't happen that easily because there are a lot of people who I just, at surface level friendships, we're having fun, we're doing things, but we're not going in that deep. And so when you and I started really getting into these deeper conversations where I started to feel more and more comfortable to open up about my life, it made me laugh actually because I'm like, am I scaring him? Because people see, but say what, say, because sometimes people see, I know a lot of people see me or have seen me over the years. And, the notion is that, oh man, she's got her shit together. Like this Tracy is, you know, and in the meantime, I'm like, if I, I'm walking around like, if you only knew, you know, and just because, we're so used to making ourselves look great on the outside, and you come across as really kind of lively and all this other stuff, but people don't know your real background. And you and I got into my background. And when we got into my background and I started really just like purging, it was like a cleansing of my spirit. And it felt good to be able to connect with you, someone, but in this case, you, on that level. And we've been friends for years.
Tracy. This is where I'm gonna grab the mic. So
Yeah.
beautifully said. And so, man, all the reasons I love you, but you just don't understand what a conduit you are because you always hit it right on the head and it speaks to what you're talking about. It's hard being that kind of person because you seem like you're doing it. Like
Yeah.
that's just what you do because it is natural to
Absolutely.
you, but people don't understand. I'm like what it takes to do like that all the time and be like that all the time. It can
That's
create
right.
a lot of isolation. And even in you just starting us off, I'm like, this is perfect because that's really what I feel in my spirit we're going to end up talking about today is vulnerability and the
Yeah.
idea so much we have learned from each other and grown into deeper understanding from those deep conversations and like just having somebody you can be vulnerable with in different ways. I feel like, and I'm like, I know you, so I know your experience has been the same. So much of my life is like when you're a plug and play and like you get along with everybody, it's like nobody's really getting the full scope of you because it's so dynamic. It's like
Yeah.
you're really showing up as yourself and all these different, but it's like everybody's not versatile like that. And so they can't go those places with you. It's rare for me to have a friend who can like it's like anything you could do, I can do better. You see like those like really like having somebody who can be on that same wave. Like whatever wave we're on, that's the wave we're on. And it's
Yeah.
all love. There's no jealousy, there's no hate,
No.
there's no subconscious
Yeah.
weird thing. Like somebody who can really understand. And that's the thing that I knew like, obviously it took a while because it was like we just fell into the natural friendship. Like we didn't even realize how deep it was until much later on. But that's how I knew when I sat down and thought about it of like it's really God because the time in my life that we met and then like just the natural progression of everything. And that's one thing that when I talk about vulnerability in this context, God always comes with such a ridiculously perfect timing that we truly can't understand that we don't see it until hindsight 2020 and that's if we're looking and you and I both know we've been looking rather hard and we're just now getting to the point where we can really like be blown away by
Yeah.
what happened and like all that we've gone through and been through together in this time which is crazy because it's like it really hasn't even been that long but it's been a long time of
But it
like
feels like it. Yeah, it has been a long time.
because it's like
We went through
you talk
COVID.
about
We
your
went through,
life,
we
you
lived
know
in
what I mean?
LA.
Like you and I have lived wild lives, like, And so to have this era where we can come together and just grow in these ways is just, I'm like, it required vulnerability that I think neither one of us really understood we were not accessing. And that's one of
Yeah.
the biggest things that I'm grateful for in our relationship of like thinking you're vulnerable because you're connecting with people. And vulnerability is so much more than connecting with people and like talking about things. It's really it's a choice. It's a choice that you have to choose to make continually. And like trust is so dynamically tied to that in a
I'm
way we
glad
don't.
you brought that word up, trust, because that's a word that, as you know, because you and I have talked about this before, I grappled with that with God, right? Because trust was a big, big issue for me with God. I mean, I grew up with a mom who, she was very spiritually connected to God, and she brought us to church, but we weren't these like, hardcore church going every Sunday, amen. We weren't religious. My mom, she gave us a foundation, and we certainly understood God's role in our lives and God's presence in our lives. And I thank God for her for that. Because a foundation, my mother was so brilliant. I loved her. She's no longer with us, but my mom was so brilliant that she didn't force it on us. She told us, she taught us, she showed how she worshiped, and then she allowed us to kind of make our own decisions about it. And so it kind of gave me this freedom. And I think I told you this story once when there was a Muslim girl who came into my school, my elementary school, and her name was Mavis. And we were all enthralled because we didn't know that religion. We didn't know Islam. So we were like, what? Muslim? She's got a thing on her head and she's got a long skirt on. And for me, I'm very visual. So I'm like, what? And so Mavis and I became friends because I just felt like I'm so curious about who you are or what you're doing. And so we became friends, and she invited me to the temple, and I went back and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I've been invited to the temple. And we grew up on Disney movies and stuff, and all this other stuff. So I'm picturing this like grand temple, and oh, my mom, well, I've got to get dressed. I've got to have an outfit. My beautiful mother took me to a fabric store, made an outfit for me to wear, a long skirt. She made the head wrap. She allowed her little baby, her, fifth grader, to go marching out on a Sunday to the temple with her friend Mavis. And I was like, Assalamu alaikum. I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, Assalamu alaikum. And that was my mom. Like, she was like, okay, if you're going to explore it, dive in, see what it teaches you. You make your choices. And I, obviously I respected when I got there, it wasn't a temple. I was a little bit disappointed. It was just a little building. And I think at the time, I was really kind of, I was actually impressed by the people, how clean everything was, how organized the religion was. It was so precise and pristine. And there was something really beautiful about it. But I remember coming, after we came back from the temple, we went back to Mavis's house, and they were making bean pies and all this other stuff. And I noticed the men were all in one room, the women were all in another room. And I remember thinking, wow, the women don't seem to have much of a, without insulting anybody, because that's not my intention, but I just didn't understand as a young age. It kind of threw me back a little to see that women weren't as in charge, as they were in my house, for instance. So, so that was something that was a bit of a deterrent for me. But once Mavis and I graduated, my mom let me graduate with a full Muslim because I was like solidarity with Mavis, man. I'm like, I'm in with my girl. And so I graduated with a full, Muslim head wrap and a long
Hijab.
skirt, all of it. And Mavis and I graduated together. And then after that, I put on my jeans and went to the movies with my friends, including Mavis. My Muslim years were over. But religion was, we never felt that we felt the power of God in our lives. My mom made that clear. Um, but, she also gave us the room to explore. And I think when my mom died, I gave up on God. I told you that. I was like, I prayed to God. God didn't save your life. So now there's no me and God. There's no me and God. And then, you're dumb enough to think that you have some say in that matter. You learn later that, how foolish you were. And, you know, God never let go of my life. Never let go.
Tracy, another perfect segue because as you know, it's like I had an almost opposite upbringing to
Yeah.
where it's like my mom, hardcore Bible thumping.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm sure she would have a completely different story to tell, but I'm like, that was my perspective. I'm like, I remember as a child, like going back and forth with her because I'm like, I didn't know, I always knew God before I knew it was God. I always had a very strong like intuition of like what I now understand is the Holy Spirit is like I just thought that
Yeah.
was my gut, like I just my moral compass, like all the different names and the ways that I'm really trying to articulate to people that it's really that simple of like we overcomplicate it and it's that stringentness and that we take the things that have natural beauty in them and we hyper focus on them to the point where we get away from the entire point of it, where it's like we're
Right.
so structured and we're so this is what it is, and if it's not that, then it's not this, and it's like that was very much my. I'm like you talk. We did go to church I remember like going to church, going to the Bible studies, going to the like having to read the little children's Bibles and like being forced to do all of these things, and it's like I was lucky enough to have that internal understanding because again a lot of it is not bad, like a lot of
Right.
it helps shape you, like there's a lot of beauty in it, but there's also that other stuff. And so for me I ended up having a rejection of that too in a much different way for a much different reason. And so when we talk about where we're leading up to this of like when we came together, it was like I just never, even now, I'm not really on that. Like, I don't believe in religion of any kind.
Right.
And like,
Yeah, me
I
neither.
don't believe in because that's the quickest way to not where you're supposed to be, in my opinion. Like, as soon as you start believing, a wise man knows he knows nothing. As soon as you
Exactly.
start thinking you've already lost the game because it's he who humbles himself who shall be
Yeah.
praised, not
Yeah.
he who praises himself.
Well, I think, as we've talked about this too, like organized religion is failing a lot of people, in my opinion. And I think it's really it's unfortunate that there's this I almost feel like there's just this sense of power and control in, this religious structure that, is really more about man than it is about God. And I think the best advice I got when I was re-exploring my journey with God, you know, I know I make God laugh. Like if nothing else, God has a great sense of humor. He's constantly laughing at me because I'm
Right.
like, um, which I'm cool with. But I think when I got back into because when I was in college, I still ignored God. And God, there was this young woman, and we were both chemistry majors at Howard, and her name was Cheryl. She was a much better student than I was because I had friends and we were going out and we were doing things, but she was wonderful, and she invited me to this Bible study in her room, and I was like, I liked her a lot too. And I was like, Bible study. Okay, great. Bye. See you. Got going. And so I never went. But the pull on my life, I could feel it. I could feel God saying, come on home. Come on back.
That reminds me of Dave Chappelle when he was nicknamed.
Just come on back. Come on back. Throttle it in. Come on back. And I used to have all sorts of notions because religion is scary. It can be really scary. And you feel like, wow, I got to give up everything. Like I got to become this different kind of person, and that it was a big fear of mine. I was like, no, I want to go out and live my life. Like I want to have fun. I want to be free. I want to go have fun. I want to have this like religious like fear because I think a lot of religion instills fear in people, right? They're kind of telling you what you can't do, what you can do. They're judging you. I'm like, oh, okay, wow, I'm going to be judged as well. So, but by the time I started coming back to God, it was a slow crawl. It was a slow crawl. And it's funny because I say coming back. I don't really think I ever left. Not really. But in my, you know how you are. I was this petulant kind of child in my head. I was like,
It's the
oh,
rebellious years.
yeah, it was me rebelling, and God knew it. And so, but when I started really kind of, I was in my dorm one night, and I had to cry out to God because I was broke, and it was Thanksgiving, and there was no one, and I was sitting in the room by myself. Everybody else had gone home, and and I was just sitting there, and I cried out to God, and God answered. Suddenly my brother was calling me literally at the right moment. Like literally a miracle. And I was like, I froze. I was like, it was like 2 in the morning. I'm like, what's my brother doing calling me? And she'd go, hey Trey, you need a ride home? And I'm like, what? And so that was kind of my way of going, because who would I call out to? God. So obviously I was still connected. But the real, right? You think you're not, but you are.
You can't not be connected, and that's the trick of religion, is it pulls us out of our individual
Thank
relationship
you.
into
That's
this
exactly right.
groupthink and
That's
mindset
exactly right.
where other people dictate what you understand and know, and that's just
That's
not what
exactly right. Because you innately know, and God is innately teaching you
every
who
day.
how to interact every single day. And
Whether you want to learn or not, he's like, I'm not going to force you, but I'm going to be here. I'm going to be present and consistent all the time.
once I started, so I had this friend when I lived in Brooklyn. Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn. I still love Brooklyn. Once I had this friend visit me, and she was very religious. Her mom's very religious. Um, she's from Philly. We worked together at NBC News. She was over at Tom Brokaw. I was at the Today Show, and she was a hoot. Annie is her name, and she was a pistol. And but Annie was very religious, and her mother was extremely religious. Like her mom was like one of those women you'd see on the subway with the Bible preaching and hitting people over the head with Bibles to act, don't act stupid. um, and so, but Annie was the one who she would come to my apartment in Brooklyn, and she would say, she was going to Brooklyn Tabernacle, and she was like, "Oh, you should go to Brooklyn Tabernacle." And I'm like, "I don't do mega churches." As a matter of fact, like, come on now, no. And so I was telling her, I don't really do this type of church. And then one day, for some reason, I don't remember why, she goes, "Oh, what she said to me was," and we started talking. So she and I were talking about religion, and she was very hardcore, which was kind of turning me off. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of I was taken aback. But then she was like, "Well, they have great music, and I love music." So I was like, "Oh, I can go hear the choir." And one day, I was having I was going through a rough patch because life is ebb and flow, right? And and I have to say, I think I told you I was a bit of I had become, I wasn't a snob, but I think I was maybe a little bit full of myself.
A little bougie, New York
Just a little
style.
bougie, just a little bit. You live in New York for a while, it just happens. And so I remember it was a Tuesday night because she told me that Brooklyn Tabernacle was Tuesday nights and Sunday you can go. And I one Tuesday night I was like, okay, I'm gonna go, right? I'm just gonna go check it out. And I go, and when I get there, they tried to send me upstairs. They had I mean, this was like a huge church. They tried to send me upstairs and up to the balcony, and I had on this white silk Donna Karan dress. Yes, I remember. And and when they tried to send me upstairs, I was like, balcony? What?
Like it was the nosebleeds.
Oh boy, I'm surprised God didn't just take his hand
She
out.
said, "You don't know I'm here to audit this church?"
I'm checking you out. This is about so I get up and I go, and I was taken aback, and I go upstairs, and I'm sitting like this, like ugh, I'm looking around at people like, and in my head I said to myself, and literally the thought in my head was, "Oh, this church, all they want is your money." It's one of those churches. The pastor comes on literally right after I said it, And I mean, I could barely see him. He was like all the way down the stage. Still a little sore about that. And he comes on and he goes, I feel like, and he didn't say anything else. He goes, I feel like I need to tell somebody, we don't need your money. We don't need your money. And I was just like, I was like, how did he
You looking
hear
around for
me?
microphones? You
Yeah,
like, did I say that
I'm
out
like, they
loud?
must have this place wired. But I'm like, I didn't say that out loud. Like, how did this guy hear me say this? And when he said it, I was like, oh my God. And then his service that night, I was crying all over my white dress, the makeup running down. I was no longer pretty. I was just like, oh my God. And then these women who were the ushers of the church, they came over and they're patting me and they're like, oh, poor baby, I understand. And I was like, anyway, that was my,
Because this is so, I'm like, oh, Tracy, you don't understand how many people will resonate with the story. And this is where it comes back to vulnerability.
yes.
Again, when you think about what it means to be vulnerable, like to decide to be vulnerable, it's just willingness.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
willingness to take a risk. It's
Yeah.
like that why not moment of like, oh, okay. A lot of people will get stuck in a mindset. And
Hmm.
so much of what I've talked about lately is perspective
I
because
need water.
that's where everything comes from. That's where it stems from. You can't be vulnerable if you've already decided in your heart not to be. It's
Yeah.
like taking that risk and acknowledging the fear, the doubt, all of the anxiety that you think you're not holding on to, and you're letting it go just to see. And
Hmm.
that's where you find yourself in a moment like that, where it's like, oof, like God, man, people, the irony is that so many people complain that God, isn't talking to them or isn't speaking to them. I'm like, you and I talk about it all the time. While we sitting up here praising God and all the other days, it's like, we still feel like, I can't hear you. I can't, you're not
Right.
saying anything, but
Right.
he's constantly speaking to us in ways that it's so hard for us to process that we just fall to tears in those moments where
I've
they'll
had Isaac, you know the stories. I mean, I this could be a much longer podcast if we go, and I'm trying not to go word for word with the whole journey because this is gonna take us into 4 or 5 hours. I'm trying not to do that. But fast story short, I ended up singing with the Brooklyn Tabernacle, right? That was a funny story. Like the way I got
don't
to
do
that.
mega churches. It went from I don't do mega, I don't attend mega churches. Now I'm in the mega church.
When I tell you I went back one day because I started going. First, they told me I was gonna have a Job-like experience. I didn't even know who Job was, right? So I went home, looked up Job, and I was like, "Oh fuck, hell no, nope, 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 not happening. No, no, no." And but I started going back, and the best advice my friend Annie, who was religious, very religious, gave me was, even my brother Matt gave me some good advice about how to talk to God. It's really, literally just a conversation. Like you're just, it's like talking to a friend. It's like you're just, I never knew. I always, because you go to church, right? Religion teaches you got to have the humla and the boom, nah, nah, and you got the rhythm, and you're sitting there and you're going, oh my God, and Lord. So I was like, ooh. And I'm like, I'm not that good at that. I'm
Seven
like,
times on one foot at the break of dawn, and
and I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, I can't do that. Like, I don't know what this all is, but I can't do it. And so my friend Annie was like, no, just have a conversation with God like you would a friend. Like, just talk. And I was like, oh, so I can just talk to God? And she's like, yeah, just talk. And once I realized that that was what I could do, I haven't shut up since. God's probably like, please shut up. I
and
mean,
it's crazy because you could never talk to him enough, and we just
I
can't.
talk about if I have to find a dress for an event, I'm like, God, she's like, I need a dress. I gotta go. And all of a sudden, this dress is showing up in the store, and I'm like,
But do you see, Tracy? This is and you've heard me tell you this time and time over the years of like, and why you're so important in these kind of conversations of like, it's not just the, oh, I didn't believe in all, but it's not that. It's that you're walking, living proof of these principles at work.
Oh, I
Like,
am.
people don't even understand the fantastical life that you live because it's like
Yeah.
you can't even begin to tell them because you've been living it your whole life. And it's really like you're tracing it back to the I started talking to God and I start seeing it happen. He does it so like there's a point where you can't ignore what's happening in your life. And
No,
that's where that
no, you can't.
vulnerability comes in.
Oh, it's so
How
sweet.
are you able to talk to God? How often are you able to suppress your ego and all that other stuff and really talk to God? Just try it and see what happens.
I've been a brat to God. I've cried to God. I have given him, there's a song that says he wants it all. I love that song. He wants it all. Anyway, I literally just say all, like there's no hiding anything. I used to feel like, oh wow, I'm gonna be so embarrassed, because I'm such an imperfect person. And there are things you think you don't want God to see, but it's like, no, you're seeing it anyway. So what am I doing? And I just feel I've gotten to a point where my life has been, as you know, because I've told you every story. I'm one of those people, poor Isaac, for you. I have told you every story from, the my magical day where I met Jerry Seinfeld and that whole light and then David Copperfield. It was like a day of magic. And my friend Annie literally went home because she was like, okay, this is way too spiritual. Like God is so all over you. Like this is nuts. And there are things that you just can't explain that start happening naturally. And it's a beautiful thing. And even when you're going through, I find that, and you know all of my darker moments, my sad moments, the moments that have been really devastating. I mean, I just came out of
Hardest
one.
day.
Oh yeah, those are but those are real. Life is not always a bowl of cherries.
The highs and the lows. Like, people love the highs. They don't want to talk about them lows. They want to
You
talk
gotta
about
deal
that.
with those lows, man. You gotta know that's where the real work kicks in. That's the real connection to God. You and I talk about that. Yeah, when you're riding high, everything's beautiful. You're in your God flow spaces. I've been told I was in my God flow space several times, but when you're not, and people stop calling, and it gets real silent and eerie, and you're sitting there alone, naked, with your feelings in those darker spaces, that's when you really need God the most. You need that connection so strongly, and you need to also know where you are. I'm careful to say that you don't always know where you are, but you know you can go to God. You know that when your friends start leaving you, right? People stop calling you, things get real ugly, family starts acting up. And the one stable in my life has always been God. God has never, ever, ever let me down. Not once. Didn't leave me, even with the ugly cries, in those dark
Even
rooms.
with the curses, even with the anger, and
Yeah.
like that's what people don't they don't meditate.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why it's that vulnerability. That's when you're willing to take that risk when you don't have anything else.
Yeah.
A lot of people, that's their greatest fear, is when you are given a lot, the fear is of losing it, being
Yeah.
without, being lonely, being
Yeah.
afraid, feeling like you're not good enough. And
I've
that's
lost
in
so
that
many
place.
times. I've lost so many times. And when we talk about loss, sometimes you lose because, God's trying to show you something, right? You got to learn, you got to get to that
Gotta
next.
choose.
Yeah, yeah,
You
you
gotta
got choices to
choose.
make. But you're constantly, I found that God's lessons and the things that God wants you to know, it's kind of weird how it shows up sometimes, it's never
Every
consistently
time.
like, oh, this is just the flow. You don't realize it sometimes, but um what I want to say is sometimes it's people, sometimes the stuff that's happening to you is just because people are messy and they get messy and they kind of mess up your life. And so those moments that you have where you're really trying to like figure it all out and you're sitting there and you're just like in your feelings and you're trying to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? Who do I turn to? But I've had a lot of those moments, and I think people have to understand like those things are going to happen. Those moments are inevitable. Like life is all about that. You're going to be way up here one day and then you're going to be way down here the next day. And how you handle those low moments is defining your character and it's defining where you're going to go. Those are actually, I would dare say, the most important moments because that's where the
Amen.
lessons are. That's where,
Anybody can win. Anybody can be happy. Anybody can be full of joy. It's when you're
absolutely.
sad, how do you show up? When you
Yeah.
hurt, when you're angry, how you
Yeah.
show up? What
Yeah.
does your brain sound like? What do your thoughts sound like? Are
Right.
you gonna let the shame control it? And are you gonna hide it and deny it? Or are you willing to lay everything bare? Because
Yeah.
that's where you reach that moment with God. When you can be real with yourself, you can be real with God. And see,
Yeah.
that's the religious
Great line. When you can be
construct.
real with yourself, you can be real with God.
Man, that's where religion's got people bound up. It's
It
teaching them
does.
to be fake.
It
And you can't
does.
be fake with God. That's
Nope.
disrespectful. You gotta be real with God.
Yeah.
Because God already knows. And He knows when you're not being real. See, we lie to ourselves. And that's why that religiousness works for people, because they think, oh, I'm giving it to God, but I'm lying to me.
Yeah.
And lying to you is lying to God.
You and I marveled at brother Denzel Washington, who I love, who I met at the Oscars. I'm not bragging or anything, but I did meet him at the Oscars when he won his Oscar. He and Halle Berry.
Testimonies. Testimonies about these principles working in your life.
But yeah, that was a just the fact that I got there the way I got there, and the people. That was pure God, pure God. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I love that he said as a ritual that he does is give yourself in the morning those first few minutes to God, like meditate, pray, sit still, pray to God, talk to God about your day, prophesize over your day, whatever it is you got to do, but get centered right out the gate, right out the gate. And you and I have talked about the importance of just having that natural, this isn't, see, that's the difference between religion. Religion is show up to church on Sunday, and then Monday through Saturday, you're off doing your own thing, right? So a lot of people think that, oh, I went to church on Sunday, I'm good. But it's not about being good. It's about having a real, consistent, daily engagement with God and the Holy Spirit, like it should just feel natural. There's no
It
hokiness.
should feel
No,
inevitable.
well,
You
yeah,
couldn't get away from it, even when you wanted to.
yeah,
Because he's like it's like trying to run away from your shadow. He's in you.
yeah.
If you just take a second to realize
It's true.
what Bob Marley said, you're running and you're running and you're running away, but you can't get away from yourself.
No, you can't. You can't. And that's why it's so that's a really important thing to talk about is really tapping into yourself because by tapping into yourself, you're tapping into God, right?
That's where you find them. It's not in the church, it's not in the Bible, it's not in other people. It's in you.
I've always talked about, exploring the notion that the Bible, certain aspects of the Bible, especially the stories that are being told about people, it's still being written, right? The Bible is a living book. It's like your story could be in the Bible, my
We're
story.
not even original enough to make new stories. It's like, how are we gonna make like what? We still doing the same stuff from thousands of years ago. It's the
Yeah,
same things.
yeah. I've learned over the years, and I feel like, and I know you're writing a book. I'm encouraging you to get this book going because your book's going to be phenomenal. I mean, we've dropped so much between you and the wisdom you've dropped. And I'm going to give myself some credit, some wisdom, and I'm sure other people who you've talked to. But it's so important to write about the things that you're going to write about because I think we need to have people understand a new way of looking at their relationship with God. And, I don't think we have to be so rigid about it. And so, um, we can sort of step out of some of these falsehoods that have been forced upon people that I think kind of trips people up and prevents them from really kind of taking this journey altogether. And once you take the journey, it's life changing. There's no going back. Like it's already in me now and it's natural, it's flowing, it is what it, and frankly, I didn't know that I could get this deeply into it. And now I am. I really didn't. Like when I first started this walk, I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen? But now it's like breathing air. It's so
Now you
naturally
look
normal.
for it.
Yeah, I
You went
do.
from to denying it to looking for it.
Looking for it is it's an interesting thing to say. Looking for it, it's like it's just it's almost like it's just naturally there. It's like you're not even really having to look as hard. It's coming
As
to you.
we think.
It's that flow that just naturally comes to you. So, things start showing up in your life, the right people start showing up in your life, the energy is different, how you flow with other people and interact with people is different. And it just you no
Spills
longer,
out.
yeah, it's good.
And people
So
feel it on you. That's another part of this we ain't
you
even
sure
talked
do.
about. When we talk about how it, and the irony is we did talk about it because you're talking about how we met. Of like, again, people, you hear a term like favor and these religious terms, but you don't really understand what that means. But
Right.
you just highlighted it. It's like
Yep.
you saw me before anybody told you about me, introduced you. Like, that ain't me. It ain't because I'm, ooh, big stepping through the lot. Like, no, it's like, I'm like, especially at that time. There was
Yeah.
a bunch of black people, young black people, smart, like some of the most creative people ever, who have gone off to do great things, were there at the same time as me. And even being in that space is, again, God active in my life. But you recognizing and like all the stuff you had on your mind back then, the way you used to be moving through that office, running around back and forth, people always in your fear, in your ear, in your face, trying to get a piece of Tracy. And it's like, we don't understand the movements of God and how
Yeah.
actively, like he's constantly leading us.
Always.
And it's like we're not even aware of how we're following. We
I
think we're not.
remember I remember I had to give a speech. I remember the first time I gave a speech, I was horrified. I hate public speaking. I really do. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're so good at it." I'm like, "You just don't know what I'm feeling." And I've never really liked doing it. And but I remember when we did this, I talk about this project we did in LA, and the owners of the agency were there, and we had been up for hours, for days, building this thing. I mean, just up, like crazy hours. And I was a shell of myself. I was a zombie. What are you saying? Say it. I can't hear
You
you.
was sleepy. You was sleepy.
So tired. I was seriously just I was
Man,
walking like, oh my God, where am I? I was in this space and I was exhausted. And I had to give a speech and rally the corral everyone
in front
and
of a large crowd, not a
not a
couple
large
people, not no
crowd.
more, like a
Uh-huh.
crowd.
Yeah. Feel scary. And I wrote a speech barely. I never got to read it, because I had to do so much between that time. We were on site at 8:30 in the morning, just leaving from a whole day of work building this thing and putting the details together. And then I had to go home and create a line sheet and a call sheet and all this other stuff. And then I had to corral like the mayor and the Congress people and all this other stuff that was happening. And so by the time I got to the site, then I had to do these interviews, right? The PR person put, Channel 7 and news and ABC and CBS, all these people in my face. And I'm like, and I literally couldn't talk. That's how I looked. I was like, what? And I'm trying to read this speech, which I never got to read. I'm like, oh shit. And so my heart is now pounding because I know I've got to get up there and say something. I'm the one, right? You're the one. You got to get up there and say something. And I prayed, because that's the one thing I learned. I'm like, when you feel like you're going under, you know what to do. You got to talk to God. I prayed. And the funniest thing happened, because you never know how God's going to do it, right? How's God? But you know God's going to do it. I'm standing there and I'm walking up with great intrepidation to the microphone. I'm being told, you got to get up. Everybody's here. You got to speak. You got to speak. And I'm walking up with great intrepidation. My brain is completely empty and fogged, like just nothing's there anymore. And all of a sudden, I hear somebody go, Tracy? And I turn around. I think I told you this. It was Ann Curry's daughter, Mackenzie. and she's on a bike with some guy, and I hadn't seen her in years, and I was like, "What, Mac?" And I went running over to her. It was like a scene out of a movie. We're like running towards each other, hair flowing in the wind, but at least that's how I envision it. I
That's
literally
how it
hid.
felt. That's the
It is.
emotional truth of
It
that
is how it
moment.
felt. It's how it felt. I literally picked her up from the ground. I mean, she's college age now, right? I pick her up from the ground and I twirl her around because I was just so, she was just my little angel. I just loved her so much. All those years I knew her and I was so happy to see her. And it's that moment, it snapped me out of everything I was feeling. And I went, and they're like, Tracy, you have to speak. And I was like, Mac, don't leave. And I just went over and all of a sudden the words came out. And it was God. God helped me up. God did that whole thing. He knew. It was like, there you go. And at the end of it, one of the owners said to me, "Did you write that speech? It was so amazing." And I was like, if you only knew.
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
Sure wouldn't. I mean, I was about to tank big. I was like, went up there to go, boo. Oh God, God has saved me and has just helped me up and has made things happen that I can't explain to people. I don't even try anymore. I'm like, okay, you're gonna think I'm crazy, so I'm just not even gonna try to tell you these stories. Because if you
And
don't know,
that's
you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. But if you know, you know.
And if you know, you can't forget. You can't
You
pretend like
can't.
you don't. And
No.
that's the real blessing of what we're talking about when you get it in you at a young age. No matter what you do. I love that quote from Kung Fu Panda where a person often finds their destiny on the road they take to avoid it.
Yeah.
Because in putting yourself in these different situations, it's like you return to that. When you hit that wall and you don't know where else to go, you
Hmm.
you surrender. You take that chance. You
Completely.
consciously decide to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Let me, I tried everything else. I tried
Yeah.
everything else that I could think of. I ain't tried this yet. And it's always in like in the people don't understand when you talk about grace and mercy. To
Right.
me, the way I define it, it's God ain't like us. If it
No.
was me, woo, and people be, I'm like, I hate repeating myself. I hate to tell people I told you so. They be acting like I'm waiting for it. I told you so. No, nigga, I wanted you to listen so that you would be good. So we never have to get here. So now that we here, no, you think I enjoy this? I'm upset because I didn't want you to be here. Now I gotta come in and try to help you, but I can't really help you no more. We both just sitting here looking stupid. Luckily for you, God don't move like that. He already knows. He's waiting on us. When we reach that place, he's glad we decided at all because there's a lot of people who don't have these kinds of stories because they're too caught up in their own doubt and disbelief to take that chance. They
Yeah.
would rather the fear of it being true is what keeps them from trying. Because if it's true, now I gotta now in their mind, I have to, I'm like, oh my God, now I'm really down bad. Now all that stuff religion is telling me is gonna happen. Now I'm gonna go to hell. If there's a God, this world is terrible. He's evil. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be like that. And that's the beauty of allowing yourself the ability to be vulnerable, to just sit and stop and like self-assess. Let me remove everything else. Let me see how I feel. What do I think? What do I believe? Like we we are all living a life, a unique existence that nobody else can really ever understand. Even your bestest friends who do have that divine connection and it's like they have so many shared experiences, they're not you and you can't possibly recall all your blessings because they've happened all your life in the same way that you can't recall all your trauma and it's stuck in your body and it's keeping track that way. It's like this stuff gets so real, so deep. We've been alive for so long. Like every day has 24 hours in it, and that you're experiencing and you're forgetting everything that happens. But the one thing you have to remember is that you're still here. And when you get to that place of understanding, I made it through all of this, that's what allows you to think, how? Every day there's miracles in our lives, big and small, big and small, and there's beauty as well as like it's so balanced, it's insane because life is as equally beautiful as it is dark, as it is dangerous. It's like, and the irony is people are so people we love the danger. That's our favorite part. A lot of the times it's the risk that gets us going. We don't like everything to be good. It gets boring. That's what you hear people. That's why we move the
Oh
way
yeah,
we
I mean, I feel that way, and that's yeah, I mean, that's why religion for a while scared me because there's something intriguing about living, kind of a naughty, not so perfect life. You're gonna be in those situations, and so you're like, really, I gotta be perfect? Like, do I really have to do that? But the funny thing is, it's funny that you said that because it's once you start taking this journey, all of those things you thought you wanted to do are suddenly slipping away, they're dissolving, and their importance is not there anymore. You're like, wait, I don't want to go out to a club and drink every night. Wait, I don't want to do all of this. Like there's so many things that you just start they naturally start falling off and you don't miss them. You're actually, instead of missing them, you're actually grateful that you're no longer doing it. It is crazy how it works. If you had asked me, I was drinking a couple of glasses of wine. I still like wine, but I was drinking, but you're going out, you're drinking socially, you're doing all this stuff, no longer of interest. It just doesn't rock my world. So you see these things now, and you don't feel like you're being deprived of anything. You're never feeling like you're deprived of anything. It's like, no, actually, you're getting better, your mind is getting better, your spirit is getting better, your physicality is getting better, your life is getting better. So, what are we talking
evolution.
about? What are you talking about missing? The things that you maybe shouldn't have been doing in the first place. But it's okay because there's no judgment. God's not judging you. But
Even you again in that breakdown, it's like I did it. I'm like it wasn't. See that like religion. If you do that, this like no, I did it. I already did it. Like I'm still here, and that it was in doing it. I got that greater wisdom and understanding.
yeah,
I never needed to do it.
yeah,
And that's where this man, where the community piece comes in when you talk about the we talked about this too, of like off of this, where it's like in the differences between us, where there is that age gap, and it's like coming from different perspectives on life and reality, and like, but going through similar things. It's like that just brings us a greater wisdom
yeah, it
because
does.
we understand it's a community that we need. They
Yeah.
that's what they took from us. That's what was destroyed is the community because it's in that a lot in the same way that those desires fade away. When we have strong community, a lot of these questions just get answered.
Hmm.
That's the danger of that isolation is you stop taking in the calm. You stop learning from other people's experiences and seeing it's like, I didn't think about it like that. Let me add that to my little flex and see if I can do it this way. And we just naturally learn and grow as human beings and evolve. And it's so already built into us. It's all the extra stuff we try to put on it from the social perspective and the social capital, like social media got us thinking all these things. It's like just be you and find the value in being you. It answers all those questions. It really does. But we're
Yeah.
so scared to be ourselves because of everything that we're being conditioned into.
Mm. Yeah, it's crazy how being ourselves is such it's such a thing now with social media. I think it's frightening actually for a lot of young people, especially struggling with their identities and how, they want to show up in the world. And it's so important to just be you and to literally turn this shit off. Like just I don't know how else to.
Allow yourself to learn what that means.
Well, we all got roped in to social media. I know I did. I used to try to show everybody how fabulous my life is. And oh, I'm traveling. Look at me, I'm in Paris. I'm so cute. And then, then I'd be home like my hair all over my head, crying in a ball because
Tired from traveling to Paris nonstop.
fired from my job. I got no money.
Mhm.
And people don't often we don't show. social media allows you to lie and hide, right? It kind of gives you that opportunity to create not necessarily a false narrative about yourself, because a lot of the stuff I posted was true. It's just I didn't
An
post any
edited version.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta see my bad days. Sorry, not showing you. And so, but what that does is that, it creates this world of perfection, right? We're all so perfect. Yay, look at social media. We're all doing so well. And that's not true. It's not true. And so, you know, again, those few places that I'm allowed to be naked are places where I'm with people I trust, but definitely God. God sees all of it. And that's where you really get your strength, because you start feeling like I can drop some of these fake pretenses and the nonsense that, society's trying to tell me who to be and how to be and how to show up and who I should be hanging out with, right? And God doesn't do that. And so once you dig a little deeper, then you start also finding people. God starts sending you like you and my brother, like I could walk around and be myself around certain people, whereas, and then the other people who maybe don't want to see that version of me, they start falling off, and that's okay. And you gotta be like, you know, bye.
It's all
And I
right.
think, and it is all right. And I think a lot of young people need to understand that, as they're searching in the wrong places for, acceptance and love and their identity and who they are. And it's like, no, you're not going to find it in those spaces. That's not the real deal. And it's okay to, if you feel like engaging in those spaces, there's a lot of other ways to engage. Social media can be fun. It's just if you can detach who you are and how you're showing up from the ways that they're trying to push you to show up. AI is scaring me these days. I mean, I don't know people. I mean, even this, it's like get more done with your AI companion. And it's like, no, I don't want my AI companion. Who the fuck are you? Like, I don't need you to write my sentences. I don't need you to correct the way I speak. I don't need you to, redo my hair. And it's scary. It really is scary. I think we have everybody, for all the businesses that are saying, oh yeah, this is going to change how we do business, but it's also going to change how we interact with one another. I think it's also the fear is the dumbing down. I mean, we can't get any dumber. Like, come on now. People have to know how to read, speak, talk, engage, make mistakes even, like fail. It's okay to fail. Like AI, what? AI is going to make sure you don't fail? Like, come on. Failures where you learn your most valuable lessons. And it's just, I think we're definitely getting on the wrong track in our, the evolution of being humans. We're really not evolving in the right direction, if you ask me. And so it's a little bit frightening. And you're seeing people who are going to lose jobs, and what are people going to do? Like, I'm like, oh, well, what are you going to do? like, are we restructuring our society at the same rate that this technology is taking over? I don't mean to be so glib,
No,
Isaac.
not even. But see, this is the irony, Tracy, is this is exactly where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, let me say it like this. It's and I tell you this all the time when we're talking in our personal life. I'm like, you don't even know how right you be. Even when you think you went somewhere you're not supposed to
Yeah, I
go, you've
digress.
landed right where you belong. And it's in doing that so many times throughout your life that you developed trust and vulnerability and flow. These buzzwords that we're constantly using because there's no other way to describe it. And
Yeah.
as we reach a place where I start tying everything together, this is what I want to talk about in that vein of flow. What you're describing is our innate desire to control.
Mm-hmm.
It is fear that
Yeah,
drives us to a desire to control an outcome.
for
But
sure.
real faith and real relationship with God is always discussed under the umbrella of surrender because we
Yeah.
don't have to take that on. You
Mm-hmm.
don't like trust that it will be okay, that you are enough, that you
Mm-hmm.
will figure it out, that you will evolve as we have been created to do. There's all of the evidence shows we shouldn't exist here. There's a lot of things that don't exist on this planet anymore. Not
Mhm.
us. We're
Yeah,
still here. And that's
yeah,
what I'm like, we're still here. This is what I'm like. I wish I could communicate this to people in the way that I have digested it because it's the thing that keeps me in that flow state. Every time I find myself in that dark despair and like negativity, I'm like, I'm still here. When I
hmm,
think about the worst possible case and what when everything could go wrong, I'm still here. As
yeah,
long as you're still here, the story continues.
hmm,
It's the ups and the downs. We don't like movies where everything goes right. I gotta see you fighting for your life. We like stakes. We want there to be something at risk.
right,
And we don't want the movie to end with losing. But
yeah,
if we don't believe you can lose, if we don't believe that there's a true risk of losing everything, it won't touch us because that is our reality as human beings. It is
yeah,
not risk that we need to focus on. It is the process of moving through it, of conquering it, of finding a way, of learning and thinking and growing and doing differently. And
hmm,
oftentimes, in the greatest stories ever told, that comes from connection, that comes from trust, that comes from vulnerability.
right,
These are the things that we need to sit and really think about. We keep chasing external understanding
right.
because we're scared to go inside.
I think they are. I think that's very well said. I think people are very scared to see how great they actually are. You know, you're actually greater than you think you are, but people seldom explore that space for the fear of seeing themselves. And it's a scary journey to take a look at yourself and who you are, because that means you have to also look at some of the things that you're doing, the behaviors, the way you think, some of the things that have shaped you. And it's dirty work. I mean, it's not easy work to do that. You and I both know we took that walk. It's like things start
Still
coming.
walking it.
Yeah, we are, because things start coming up and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know how that impacted me and that I'm behaving this way as a result of it. And how do I change that? Because with that comes change, right? You need to change who you are. And you also start taking more accountability for your role in all things, because you realize you can't really control anyone else. So anything that happens to you, around you, involves you. And so, what part of this are you participating in? It's a really big, yeah, it's a really big undertaking that I think, only the few, only the brave really want to walk in that direction. A lot of people would rather walk through life being led and not seeing themselves. I mean, I grew up in a family where I know a couple of my family members, my sister recently passed away last year. I loved her dearly, and but she could not look at herself, and didn't. And if you brought anything up, she did not want to talk about it, and it made those relationships strained, because when you're evolving and you're kind of opening up, and God's showing you all sorts of ways of being, um, it's hard to start staying in some of those relationships. And we can talk about this. This is a totally different subject, but it's like a lot happens to you when you start to walk a new path and you start to really want to see who you are and make those necessary changes in your life. A lot will start to happen. And some good, some bad, some crazy, some wow, like what is this?
All beautiful.
Every single step you take towards it will lead to something beautiful, without a doubt. It might seem scary, it gets messy, and all of those things are true. And yet, at the end of that road is beauty and joy, and you finding your true self and becoming more
Dreams
self
and
actualized.
success.
It's the best feeling in the world. And so, as you're, so going through that process, I think it's true what you're saying. It's like social media and this new technology, it keeps us further and further away from actually doing the work that we need to do to get to know who we are and how dynamic we actually are. And some people will never see it. And this gets us even further away from that reality. It's like You don't have to do the work. AI is going to do it for you. You don't have to know how you think because AI is going to do it for and it's just, it's kind of crazy because human interaction and human connection is one of the most beautiful gifts that God could possibly give us. Is that we get to connect with one another. We get to make things. We get to think. We get to use our brains. We get to use our hands. We
We
get
get
to
to feel.
feel. We get to feel. And when you start stripping all of those things away, you're killing humanity. You're just killing us slowly. And people are going to literally not know. They're going to be walking around more confused than ever. And it's quite frightening. I highly encourage people to like stop, pause, think about what you want, look at what this is doing. I have friends who have said, "Oh, but this chat GPT, it helped me write my paper and I was under a lot of stress." I'm like, "Yeah, but shouldn't you be writing that paper?" Because then you start having to ask yourself,
Why are
are
you
we
doing
well, are we giving each other enough time to get things done? And, are we pushing people too hard? Is your life too chaotic? Are these school and work schedules too crazy that you have to have a paper written in less than 4 hours? They're expecting you to deliver something. And so this kind of push, 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 it's not always a good thing because you're not getting to develop the way you should develop a craft or a skill. That takes time. Sometimes that's slow moving. Sometimes, that's
that
hourly
you're
work. It's
learning?
minute by minute. Yeah.
You're learning and feeding the desire to keep revealing things about yourself.
Yes.
It's like,
It's fun.
oh
I
no, go
used
ahead.
to, well, no, this is a conversation, so, I don't want to run off, but I remember when I started taking photography classes, right? And I was in a dark room. It was such a beautiful experience. For those of us who know what seeing like you're opening your film in a dark room inside of a canister, and then you hear that click, and all of your film is now in there, and then you go and you get that strip of film and you mix your own chemicals, and each chemical is going to do something different, and you're doing it, and you're doing it yourself, and you've taken the pictures, so you can't wait to see what's going to emerge, right? You're like, oh wow. And then sometimes you're like, oh shit, but nonetheless,
The
nonetheless,
process.
it's you. You're doing the process. You're learning. You see how things work.
You're seeing yourself make change.
And you're seeing yourself physically do it. So there's something highly spiritual in the doing, right? Because now you're like, oh wow, I'm doing this thing. When we start stripping that away, I mean, I was at my friend's, my brother's family, his in-laws. They had a birthday party for one of the children, right? Recently. And I remember there was something we were talking about it, and they were like, "Oh, well, she doesn't know how to cursive write. They've taken it out of schools." And I'm like, "Wait, that's happening already?" Because I don't have any kids in
Long
my
time
house.
ago.
I know. And I was just like, wow. I remember how proud I felt when those 3 lines and you had to like get your lines right and write your name and start writing things. And even now, like when I have to write my signature, I do it so artistically. Like I'm like, Trey.
You know how you sign your autograph?
Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's art in that. It's you, it's the pen, you're creating it. And I'm like, we can't. What are we doing? What are we doing, Isaac? What are we doing? Because you take the spirituality out of creation. Creation, that's what we're talking about, right? And I'm like, I don't want AI and Chat GPT to tell me how to think and rewrite my words and tell me my spelling's wrong. Okay, I know my spelling's wrong. Damn it. Let me use the wrong word. It's okay. Everybody's gonna get it. And when we start doing that, we're stripping people of spirit, of the spirit of creation, and of our humanity. It's a concern. It's a concern. Ah.
What I'll leave you with is this. Because now we done we do any more, people gonna be like, it's too much. The beauty that we as individuals personally have reached is understanding that trust aspect. I'm like, I feel you. I too fight those worries, but I also believe in the Tracys, in the Isaacs, in the
Mhm.
like they're oh man, people are doing it. They are. That's the only reason I can bring myself to do stuff like this.
Yeah,
Where I when I don't have the time and I don't have, because I know there's people like us thinking about these things,
yeah,
looking for this content, looking to that we're solving it together.
yeah.
If everybody does a little, nobody has to do a lot. And as we all go deeper within ourselves, we discover the piece of the puzzle that we're supposed to add to the world. And
Mm.
before we know it, all the things that we were worried about are not just solved, but they're evolved. And it's more beautiful than it was before.
I think that's beautifully said. I want to just say that, as creators, right? And we are blessed that we have this opportunity to create in the world and leave our imprint, you know. And when you think about imprint, I think everyone, all these corporations, all these companies that are out here doing all this stuff to obviously make a profit. But we also have to think about, are we adding value to what God's already given us? You know, are we making it better? Are we making the world better in some way? Are we improving something for the sake of improving it, or because there's a need and there's something that's going to make our lives, enrich our lives in a more spiritually grounded way? And there's beauty in creation, and I'd hate to see us lose that. So it definitely enlivens my heart to know that there are a lot of people who are out here who are resisting and saying, I want real art. I want music that someone has written and played with their own little fingers and hands, and some real person's voice. I don't want to hear AI music. I'm sorry, I'm rejecting it. I'm rejecting it. And I think we all have to push back, so that we can really embrace what we're here for. To love, to learn, to give, to live, to be happy, to make others happy, to share. There's a lot that we can do to make this world amazing. And so I pray that the people who have that energy and that spirit, that we just sort of bulldoze our way through it all, through the noise, get through the noise.
Mhm. Apparently, we always do historically. Just like today, where we sat down to have a conversation, and boy, did we get deep.
Like, you called me and said, "Hey, do you want to do my podcast?" And I was like, "Okay." And we never know what we're going to talk about. We just kind of get out here and flow. I've loved our conversations. I wish everybody would be privy to some of our previous conversations, because we've had some really great conversations over the years. And so it's nice that you have this format now. And, I'm going to pray that God just keeps blessing you and it keeps growing, and, more people come on, and you just keep this kind of energy going. And it's good. This was fun as usual, Isaac. We knew it would be. Whenever you're involved, I know it's going to be a good conversation.
Telling you, the beauty of being blessed. That's another one.
Sure is. Sure is. So
But
thank you.
thanks again.
This was fun. This was a lot of fun.
Loved it.
There's so much more to
Wow.
talk about, so we could
It
go on.
always is.
Do it again.
Fact. I'm like, we'll run it back.
We'll do it again.